We good? Can everybody hear me? Everybody all right? Beatty, I've been doing good. Just responded back to one of your comments about wide zone. Unfortunately, after week 3, we went back to gap schemes. We were struggling with our zone stuff. Felt like um, just was going to take us too long to get our offensive linemen where we needed to be, get our centers where we needed to be, ID in fronts and working the fronts, and felt like we had some good backs, especially a sophomore back that we really liked, and felt like yeah, Monday Night Football. I forgot all about it. I'm not an NFL guy, so and Monday Night Raw. So, but it's about the only time this week that I'd be able to be on because we have a playoff game Friday. So I figured I'd just get on and forgot about NFL football and then Monday Night Raw. So we felt like we had a back that we were just wasting our time with. We couldn't get them going, couldn't get anything going, and so we switched back to gap schemes, mostly GT counter, and in the last 5 games, the back's had over 1,000 yards and 8 rushing touchdowns, and he's actually up till last week. We had a bye last week, so we didn't play a game. But up till last week, he was the 3rd leading rusher in Northeast Florida in our area as a 10th grader. So, unfortunately, didn't get too wide zone as much as we would have liked to, or I would have liked to. But at the same time, the move back to gap schemes and GT counter, and can't really argue it right now with the results. The results we got, we started the year off 0-3 when we were running zone schemes, but that had nothing to do with the zone schemes. That had more to do with us not being ready to play football after the pandemic with new kids and young kids, and playing 3 really good football teams that all ended up the year. One team ended up 7 or 8-1. Another team ended up 7 or 8-1, and another team ended up 5-3 or something like that. But they were a 2017-18 back-to-back defending state champs. So those 3 had more to do with losing the first 3 games than anything else, and then made a change week 4, lost the game 18-14 again to another school that finished the season 6-2 or 7-1, something like that. So a couple good losses on the schedule. Got back to playing with the gap schemes. Got back to simplifying some things and simplifying the game plans and getting our kids to kind of get out there and execute. So still in love with zone and wide zone theories. Wanted to eventually get to the counterplay with the zone and wide zone theories, but just felt like we had to get rid of it. Who knows? Sometime in the future, maybe we'll go back to it. I don't dislike zone schemes. I still think my brother does not coach. Coach Lucci. He had some kids that went to Tualatin High School, but I believe it was Tualatin High School. But he does not coach. Used to back in the day, but doesn't coach anymore. He works for Progressive Insurance. So, hopefully, maybe one day we'll get back to zone stuff. Like I said again, I'm still in love with zone theory. Still in love with wide zone as a play. Love watching NFL teams run it and execute it. Love watching it in college. But for us right now, it's just not a way to go. And maybe if if in the future in the off season, if we feel like we've got the tools to do it, I feel like our running back would probably be pretty good doing it. But just too much involved with the kids that we had and the time that we missed in with the coronavirus stuff, not having a spring game and a summer and a kickoff classic, and so maybe in the future we'll get to it. I don't know, but we got a playoff game this Friday. Probably wouldn't be in the playoffs in a regular scenario, but with coronavirus stuff, we get a chance to play a playoff game or get a chance to host a playoff game. So, for me, it's nice because it's one more game that one more game you get to coach it. The kids get to play when you have younger kids and younger talent. So, uh, in this in this day and age, with everything that was going on this year, finishing 8 games and a playoff game is going to be great to get at least 9 under your belt. If we win this one, we get a chance to host another one, play a 10th game, which would be awesome to have 10 games experience. That's a full season for our young kids. If we found a way to win the second one, then we'd have to go on the road. But again, playing 9, 10 games this year is a plus for us, and figuring out that GAPS games are a better way for us to go, and finding a few younger guys that really stepped up to the plate. We're really young on offense. We play 2 sophomores on the O-line. We play a junior or a sophomore at quarterback. Our tailback's a sophomore, and 3 of our 4 receivers are sophomores. And there's 1 junior receiver also. 2 junior receivers also. So we play 5 underclassmen at receiver. We do have 1 or 2 seniors at receiver that contribute for us that we're going to lose, but 3 senior O-linemen. That's going to be the big part if we can figure out a way to replace them. But we are young on offense. We needed all these games. We needed as many games as possible. So hats off to the state for coming up with a system where we could play playoff games. And like I said, it probably wouldn't be in any other fashion right now. Don't deserve to be in. But we're in, and we're thankful for a home game, and thankful for an extra opportunity because we certainly needed it. And we've gone, it's been a crazy year on top of all the other nonsense with Corona stuff and what we needed to do at practice and games and all the different, all the different circumstances that occurred out there, losing some kids to contact tracing, and then losing 1 or 2 to a positive test here or there. It's actually been way better than I thought. I thought we'd lose way more kids than we did. We didn't lose as many as I thought. I think our kids did a good job in school with masks and social distancing. I think we tried to do a good job as a coaching staff with everything we did. So, hats off to our kids and our teachers and our administration and everybody that helped us get that done. And I think we're more lucky than anything else, but we tried to follow the rules and try to do the best we could and see what happens. So we haven't lost as many as I thought, but all in all, to finish the season and be able to play in a home playoff game is pretty exciting. Great question, John. We changed so much throughout the year on offense and defense, bouncing back and forth from what we thought we needed to be to win, going back to what we knew that we've won with in the past. So we are right now probably going to try and stick to bread and butter for us that our players know, that our players are comfortable with, that our players can execute. If there is anything new in the game plan, it's probably going to be special teams wise. I think we've got some things that we've changed up within our punt schemes and our punt block return stuff, and some things on field goal because we're a muddle huddle team. I think we decided that right now we made so many changes throughout the year and bounced around on our kids until we found out something that we felt on both sides of the ball gave us a chance to win. So I think we're going to stick to bread and butter with what our kids are comfortable with, and we're going to work. We're going to work that game plan. We've got one new pressure in on defense, just because I think at this time of year you have to have something to change things up when teams might have 8 to 10 films on you. So we've got one new movement or one new pressure in, but we are staying very close to the vest on defense. And I think we're running most of our base stuff on offense and things that we can execute, things that during crunch time, we'll have kids that have not been in a playoff game before, have never been in that atmosphere before. So we're going to do some things that hopefully they can, again, play fast, no pun intended to the to the website and the name of the company, but trying to do things that our kids can do well, trying to do things that our kids can do without a lot of thinking. So we're trying to stay bread and butter, John, to answer your question. But that's always I asked a couple questions on the Twitter chat last night about that. When you go into the playoffs, depending on, are you the better team? Are they the better team? What's the matchup like? Do you go in and wrinkle a whole bunch of things and hope that those wrinkles are good enough? Or do you go in with status quo and hope that your kids can execute better than the other team with the status quo? Do you try and change things because you think they know, what you do because they have probably 6 to 8 to 10 films? Uh, do you stay with what you do to say, hey, look, this is what we do. Go ahead and beat it. So, to answer your question again, John, uh, not to beat a dead horse, but we are pretty much bread and butter for this playoff game. Don't know what we'll do the second week, because if we do, we'll probably draw a team that we lost 35-32 against. So that could be interesting, that game plan. But right now, bread and butter. Kuroga, when we were 3-3 stack, we simplified everything for our kids, and we blitzed more left, right, middle. So we became more of a field boundary type blitzing team, middle type blitzing team. Very rarely blitzed formations. Had a lot of young players on defense that I didn't feel like could identify formations quick enough and run the blitz tracks that we needed versus those formations. I'm not against blitzing formations. I think it's a great idea. I'm not against blitzing the back. I'm not against, having checks for 2x2 blitzes and 3x1 blitzes. I'm not against any of that. I just think for us, with the kids we had and some new coaches, I thought it was easier to stay with some pressures that were field boundary based. So right now we've got, we've got one pressure from the boundary one pressure from the boundary where we set the front to the field. We've got one pressure from the field where we set the front to the boundary. And then we've got an inside pressure that we can run from anywhere. And we've got a double edge pressure that we can run from anywhere. So no formational blitzes right now, but we've got some field, some boundary, and then some inside and outside blitzes that can be run from anywhere. As far as field position is concerned, obviously you tend to get a little bit more aggressive as you get backed up. Excuse me. If you get backed up across the 50 into your own end. But one thing I do try and stay true to is if I'm going to blitz in their end when I have them backed up or they're on their side of the 50, I'm going to use more zone pressures as we get across the 50 into our end. Then that's when I start to mix in more man-free or zero pressures, just because of the probability and the statistics of them scoring points and what you're trying to do to get them to not score points or to score 3 points and not 7. So as they get closer down the field, their probability of scoring increases. And so we try to get a little bit more aggressive. Now, we will pressure. I'm not afraid to pressure when teams are backed up based on what they do and, maybe how good they protect, how good of a screen game do they have. But when they are backed up, I'm probably going to bring 5-man zone pressures, maybe some 6-man zone pressures, but I'm almost never going to man pressure when I've got somebody backed up because 1 or 2 missed tackles or you don't fit a run right or they catch you on a screen and get somebody blocked and the whole field flips and you give up points. So interesting question, Kroger. Great question when you're talking to people about pressuring. I would say right now we're probably only pressuring maybe 25 to 30% of the time, which is probably low for me as a coordinator. But we've switched back and forth between 3-3 stack stuff and then some 1 high man-free stuff back to our split field palm stuff. So I really wanted to get a lot of reps playing base coverage, and we're still moving a defensive front. We're moving our D-line and stunting some guys a little bit, but we're not pressuring anywhere near as much as I used to. And like I said, one of the reasons for that is wanted to get our kids reps in base and wanted to get our kids the last 3 or 4 games back to playing split field coverages and understanding when we want to play palms and when we may need to play quarters and what our single side or way side checks are. And, when we want to play sky or cloud or hard cover 2 and when we want to play more of a traditional cone or a quarters look sometimes to the single. So, probably not blitzing as much as we normally do, but that could be one of the changes. That could be one of the changes that we come up with in the playoffs based on self-scouting tendencies. We may need to pressure a little bit more in the playoffs than we have during the regular season. So who knows? But that's what makes the playoffs exciting. That's what makes postseason exciting. Trying to figure out those game plans. Trying to not. The biggest thing I'm trying to do is not outcoach myself, our kids, our defensive side of the ball, and then in talking with the offense, making sure they understand who our dudes are and where the football needs to be, and making sure that we're doing things that are to our strengths and not our weaknesses. Just trying to, try not to game plan too much based on what you see on film when you're playing an opponent you're not familiar with. Trying not to get too crazy with the game plan and get away from what you do based on the X's and O's and the trying to have the chalk last based on film and getting in there and saying, hey, look, this is what we do, this is what they do. Let's line it up and get it to our best players, and let's stay on top of down and distance and try and win first down and stay in manageable second and third downs, and let's mix up our runs and passes, and let's throw on downs where we've been running and run on downs we've been throwing and change our tendencies up. So, outside of that, I think it's just a matter of let's get our kids ready and let's go see what they do in that atmosphere. Like I said, we've got a lot of young kids, and especially on offense, there's more on offense than there are on defense. But we still got some young kids. We're playing a ninth grader at the 3 technique right now. We play a ninth grader as a starter/backup will linebacker. So we've got 2 ninth graders on defense and play a 10th grade safety on one side, and we've got a 10th grade safety dressed on the other side. So we've got a couple young kids on defense too. So I just want to see what they're going to do in that environment, in that setting. Win or go home. See what they do with the game plan. See what they do with practice, and so it'll be interesting. Sometimes lose perspective of blitz, get caught in a moment and sending pressure when I felt. Yeah, sometimes Kuroga, you just got to be careful with gut feeling and momentum and adrenaline and blitzing because you're pissed, or blitzing because your heart's pumping, or blitzing because you've got adrenaline and things going your way. Sometimes it works for you. Sometimes coaching by your gut works, but when it comes to when it comes to pressuring or blitzing, I think you've got to think about field position. You got to think about score. You got to think about what the other team does well. Can they screen you? How dynamic is the quarterback in the run game? And then you've got to plan your blitzes around that to say, all right, are we going to zone pressure? Are we going to man pressure? Are we going to man free pressure? Are we going to run any combination pressures that are man on one side and maybe zone on the other? So there's more of a game plan to your pressures than just kind of Katie bar the doors, send everybody. But once you get used to that, you'll learn, Kuroga. You learn the hard way with some passionate blitzes at the wrong time, and then you sit back after that and collect yourself and said, that was probably dumb, and go back and watch film and look at all the things that in the heat of the moment you felt like were dumb. And you don't learn as a play caller or a coordinator. It's almost like being a parent. You can read all your books and you can do all your studies, but until you have that job, nobody prepares you for it. So you can learn under great defensive coordinators. You can study all the blitz tendencies or field pressure or blitz to back or blitz to formation things you want. And in the heat of the battle, you're going to figure out what it is you do and how you do it. And you're going to get scarred, and you're going to get scarred by learning what's right, what's wrong, what's good, what's bad. You're going to make good calls and you're going to make bad calls. You're going to possibly flip the game or win the game with a good call, and you're going to possibly lose a situation that might cost you the game with a bad call. So all those things are going to help you be a better coordinator in the future. So you just got to do it and you got to go through it. So you'll learn, and the fact that you actually understood that you lost perspective of blitzing and got caught in a moment, that's actually step one. You know what your mistakes are, you admit it, what your faults are, and now you got to go back and physically fix that. I have 2 semesters left, and I will have my master's in math and in coaching. What is something you look? Obviously, if it's somebody young, it's tough. You're trying to look at experience or playing experience, but not all college players make great coaches. Not all great coaches were great college players, so you can't always use that. Trying to look and see if anybody has experience in coaching it's hard enough to find teachers and coaches now, so it's tough to go out and pinpoint all the things that you'd really want in an interview or in a coach. Sometimes you end up settling and hoping that the coaches work out. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. But I'm looking for things like experience. I'm looking at the resume to see where you played, where you've coached, where you've taught. Do I know anything about those programs? Is there anybody I can call as a background check? To kind of anybody that I know that'll shoot me straight on personality or work ethic or things like that. So, um, it's just a deal where you got to break in somewhere. Everybody gets a chance somewhere. I got a chance. I broke in as a grad assistant first, and then went and took an assistant high school job, and then got a chance as a head coach. So somebody took a chance on me. I take a chance on people sometimes. So, um, you know, having your master's is going to help. Being a math student with a math background is going to help because there will be math jobs open. Guys breaking into the coaching field with PE jobs, it's not good. So having math as your discipline, your field, your area will be tremendous for you. Again, having your master's will be tremendous. You just got to shop around, put your resume in, talk to some people, and if you got to start lower at a junior high level or get a JV job or something like that, you just start where you start. You earn your keep, you pay your dues, and you move your way up the totem pole, climb the ladder, and keep working from there. So just be persistent about it. We haven't done a good job logging. I actually, for the playoff game, I told one of my assistants in the booth that I would love. I have an assistant in the booth that actually runs our sideline replay. So he actually has to press record on. We our sideline replay runs through our camera and then through a laptop. So he actually has to press record to send those. He's seeing what the camera sees, and then he's just pressing record and stop on his laptop to send those clips down to our iPads that are hooked up to TVs on the sideline through our Game Strat sideline replay stuff, which is absolutely awesome. We love it to death. Don't have a lot of problems with it. Don't have a lot of issues with it. So it's hard for him to chart, and I don't have an offensive coach up there in the booth right now, and we don't have a lot of coaches up there in general just because of Corona and COVID. You don't want 8 filmers and 10 coaches and all those people standing around. So, it's just one of those deals right now where we don't have anybody right now to chart, but it's something I'm looking at for this playoff game. Something I would like to do. I would love us to be able to live chart our and there's even some software out there to live chart stuff on a laptop or an iPad. So, I would love to be able to do that, but we're not doing it right now. Sorry. So young secondary, how do you protect them when they're young and inexperienced? The district we were in, spread heavy, but spread to run. Most high school teams are spread to run. High school football still, in my experience, even in Florida, is 80 to 85% pass. There will be some teams that throw it 25, 30 times a game, but there's a lot of teams that don't want to do that, even though they're spread. They want to spread you out and run, quarterback runs and gap schemes. And so, as far as protecting a younger secondary, keep your calls limited. Maybe if you're a split field coverage team, you only have, one way that you can, handle 2 open, one way that you can handle a tight end and a flanker, one way that you handle 3-by-1. And then on the backside, you may only have 1 or 2 ways to handle a single. So, you gradually get all your answers built in to give them the opportunity to play some different things. If you're going to play any man, see if you can play man with underneath help or over the top help or inside help or, some robber stuff where you have an underneath guy and over the top guy. So, it's just one of those deals where you're trying to protect them with cut players or deep hole players. Try and send 5 and 6 as much as possible. Protect them with a pass rush. But at some point, if they're out there on the field, you're not going to be able to protect them the whole time. So just be patient with what you install so their head doesn't spin, so that they're able to play techniques and things like that. And, just be diligent in your pedagogy and how you're teaching them and what you're teaching them, and stay steady to it. Like I said, we switched a couple times, and then once we got back to what we felt like was good for us, we've tried to stay, um, you know, we've tried to stay as uh, steadfast to the techniques and fundamentals of the things we need to play. And now we gradually add it to the toolbox based on splits. We're now back to our split field stuff and been doing it long enough that we can make our quarters checks based on splits, and we can make our man checks, based on splits of two and one, and where they are on the field. So, you just keep kind of chopping wood and working with it and building, but, just make sure you're trying not to switch where their eyes are and how they pedal, and, switch from shuffle out to pedal to just keep your techniques and your things consistent. And once you feel like um, once you feel like what you want to do, then kind of go in that direction. But it's good to have young guys. You just got to be patient, especially on the back end. It's great to have young guys on the back end. Just be patient. Um, Thank you, Marcus. I appreciate it. Hunter, love the idea. Yeah, it's weird. I kind of stumbled across that. We had been running the dart for a while, but I never really ran it as with a power scheme. I never ran it with a kick out by the fullback. It was always misdirection for us with the sniffer kind of going away from the dart play. It was never a full flow play for us because we always wanted it as a no problem. We always wanted it as a misdirection play, and then never really looked at the counter play with sniffer kick and a tackle wrap. And then I saw Oklahoma doing it and stumbled across that, and then kind of looked at some things that drove us nuts with bare front and trying to block back with the center, and then getting 3 solo blocks on the nose and the 2-3 techniques. And if you're not good enough to win those, struggling with bare front, and teams basically by getting into bare front, getting you out of certain sets because you have no answers against it. So I just thought it was a neat idea based on a leverage, pulling the tackle, not the guard, leaving the guard on to block the 3 technique, and then being able to double the nose. I just thought it was kind of neat with the dart play looking like power and the dart play looking like counter. So it's interesting sometimes when you're not even looking for stuff, you just stumble across some things. And always been a fan of the dart, always carried the dart scheme, and picked up this year a couple new ways to run it. So I think it's cool. Thanks, Coach Greenfield. It depends on if our district stays the same and if coaches stay the same. If your opponents stay the same and coaches and coordinators stay the same, then yes, you want to start looking at some things in the offseason. If the opponents don't stay the same, then obviously it doesn't help you. If opponents stay the same but coaches change and all of a sudden they're even to odd, or 1 high to 2 high, or gaps to zones, or 21 personnel to 10 personnel, those things aren't going to help you too much. But if the opponents and the coaches are the same, then you definitely want to be preparing in the offseason for the next season. But I think the biggest thing in the offseason to me is fixing yourself. Finding out where you're bad, what you struggle with, and then fixing that, and then coaching wise, kind of fixing some of your tendencies. And then when you're looking at passing plays and people dropping the ball, you've got to look at protection. Was the protection good? Was the protection right? Route concepts based the cover, versus the coverage. Did you have a good route called versus that coverage? Depending on what the coverage was and what the route concept was, did the quarterback make a good read? Did he go through his progressions? And then if he throws a catchable ball that gets dropped, you can't go back and throw schemes out because you're dropping the ball. You've got to look and say, all right, this scheme was good to us. It was good to us for a few coverages, and when we executed it right, our quarterback understood how to read it and how to read it. And you just go back and you look. The biggest thing is look at personnel. Are you doing the right things for your personnel? And you're not always going to answer that question correctly. We thought we were going to be a zone team, and we put, obviously our offseason was cut short, but as much time as we had in the offseason, we put into being a zone team, and it backfired on us, and we had to make a change. So, um, I think there's some times where you're going to focus on things, and you're going to end up screwing it up a little bit, and find out that you focused on the wrong things or didn't focus on maybe some of the things you should have. So, um, I think you definitely look at yourself and the plays that you're running. Does it fit your schemes? Your tendencies, your calls, down and distance, field and boundary, right and left, strong and weak, run to pass. Look at all those things and really see if you can change your philosophy on how you call plays and what you do. And then see if the schemes are good for you. If the schemes are good and you're just losing a battle here or there on a back block, or you're not getting enough movement on a double team. If the schemes are good and they're solid, but you have some young kids, or you need to grow up and get stronger, or you're just losing some one-on-ones and pass pro with a young kid, then you stick with it. If you feel like you're not getting the ball into playmakers' hands, you're not stressing the defense, then you make a change. And you go out there and you study what you want to study, and you figure out your talent, and you make a change. Every change you make in your heart and in your mind is for the best. You're never going to make a change that you feel purposely hurts your kids or your program. So, you study some things, you learn, you find out what you like, what you think your kids can do, what you think fits your kids, and then you just go at it hard and hope you have some success with it. And, the other thing is don't, make sure you're changing it for the right reasons. Don't change it based on results. Look at your schedule and see if you're playing teams maybe that are a little bit better than you, and maybe the results aren't indicative of the schemes or the execution of the schemes, because those teams have more talent than you do. So there's a lot that goes into that. So just make sure you study all those things. Verbiage of play calls is oh, sorry. Let me go back to David. Sounds very Saban not switching from pedal out to shuffle from the infamous Michigan State YouTube video. Yeah, one of the reasons Saban is more of a press man guy is because he doesn't like his guys an off man, and he thinks he thinks a half turn is a better position to play in. But that Michigan State video on YouTube is probably from 30 years ago or 20 something years ago. So I'm sure Saban's changed his mind 9 million times on what he does. But I know for a fact he doesn't like pedal. He doesn't like kids pedaling or shuffling. He likes shuffling or half turn more than he likes pedaling. But at the same time, he loves playing press man because he thinks that's what his kids do better. So Saban's an interesting. I'm an Alabama fan too. Been one my whole life, and growing up in New York with no football to watch other than Notre Dame and Alabama, I just gravitated towards Alabama in about 1978 when I was 6 years old. So been an Alabama fan my whole life. So Saban's, as a coach and an Alabama fan, Saban's definitely an interesting dude. Definitely a great one. Maybe the best ever in college. But he's changed. He makes changes. He shifts back and forth to things. So, he grows like everybody else. He learns like everybody else. So just interesting when you bring that up. It's the video I'm thinking of, he definitely talks about playing more in a half turn. You're already in a half turn from the shuffle. Verbiage, Coach Greenfield. It's a combination of things maybe I used in college that I learned, in a playbook in college or a playbook growing up. It's things I've studied on YouTube, different coach's choice or videos that I've bought and studied, Glazier clinics, just kind of taking all those things and putting it together to figure out what works for me. Yeah, probably right around that time, David, right around, I know Ozzie Newsome was playing tight end, and I think Major Ogilvie was wearing number 25 in the backfield, because at that age, I was a running back at the time in Pop Warner, and, wanted to be Major Ogilvie in the worst way. So that's probably right around that time. So, just verbiage that I picked up over the years. I studied a lot of TCU 4.25 stuff, but their verbiage didn't fit mine, so I didn't take it. Like the two blue stuff and Bronco and stuff like that. I use my own verbiage, like palms and read and what we call sky and cloud and hawk. And So it's just things that I'm comfortable with, things that I think make it easier on our kids. Um, once you've been in it for a little while, you try and get some terminology or some verbiage that stays with you, so that you can build some consistency. When we were on offense, it was all about one word plays and trying to narrow, especially in the run game, trying to narrow things down to one word that told us scheme and direction and action in the backfield. So you just kind of get creative with some things. You blend some things that you like with some things that other people like, and you take ideas from coaches that join your staff and other head coaches that you talk to, and you look at things and you go, that makes sense. I'm going to do that. So the great thing about verbiage and terminology is there is no one set way to do it. Um, as an Alabama fan, it's funny. I don't know if I use any of the same terms as Saban. I don't. Maybe the techniques of Meg and Mod and things like that, but as far as our blitzes and coverages, and I don't use his cover 6 or cover 7, or I don't use any of that terminology. So it's interesting what you do choose and what you don't choose. I'm an Alabama fan and a Nick Saban fan, and I don't use any of his terminology because I don't like it. So the great thing is there is no one set um, dictionary thesaurus for terminology, and as long as your kids understand what comes out of your mouth, that's all that matters. As far as scripting the first couple plays of the first series, I'm a big fan of scripting at least one series, if not the first 10 plays. I think the things you've studied off film, and some of the things that you can get to. Maybe some of the things have been practiced are a little bit different. Maybe there's some gadgets or some wrinkles in there. There's a way you want to start a game. There's players you want to attack. There's things you want to do. I know when we were playing teams that were better than us with especially up front early in the game, I like to script some things because I like to run as many perimeter jet sweeps and screens as possible early to get those kids to run, to try and kind of tire them out. So I was scripting things that I thought had a chance to be successful, but I was also scripting things based on the fact that I was trying to wear another team out, psychologically, physically, cardiovascularly, because I couldn't block them getting off the bus. I wasn't as good as they were when we got off the bus. So I had to make some changes to how we wanted to attack. And, I'd call some things early in the game where my lineman could cut. I'd call some quick passes. And so I'm a big fan of scripting early. Not the biggest fan of scripting based on field position. I like shot plays or alarms or fire alarms based on certain scenarios, explosive plays, sudden changes as far as field position, stuff like that. So, if we might have certain things that we like from the plus 40, and if we get an explosive play of 25 yards that puts us there, we're going to go to that shot play or that gimmick play right then and there. We might have some things that we love after a sudden change. So those are the only things I would look at, maybe field position wise, as far as scripting. As far as sticking to a strict bank of plays the entire game, that's kind of what we try to do all season. We try to have our menu of things that we do within our schemes, and we might have slight wrinkles each week, but we try to stick to the things that we do and do those every week. Maybe we'll change the presentation with a motion or a slight formation change, but we're not going to change the play. If we're a power counter team, we're going to run power counter. We may find different ways to get to power counter, or we may tag RPOs, but we're always going to have a set. We're always going to have that set bank of plays that, that 75% that we run every week, all the time. So, doesn't matter what you call, as long as it's consistent, teachable. Yeah, I like that, Johnny. I think if it's consistent with your kids, if it's consistent with your coaches, if it's learnable and teachable, then I think you're good to go. Also, remember with terminology that once you start playing games, a lot of things become signals. You're not even saying words anymore. The coach speak between you and the player has to be discernible and understandable. But as far as communicating plays, they all become hand signals. And so now that verbiage and that terminology, that verbiage and that terminology that you were talking about and so worried about, now all of a sudden it becomes, whatever the hand signals are, like a baseball coach. So, keep in mind that the verbiage, especially with play calling and communication, that's really the most important during installs and meetings. And then once you get on the field, a lot of times, especially with no huddle tempo teams, you end up signaling things in, and all this becomes, all your verbiage and terminology becomes these things, like a baseball coach. So, just keep that in mind with. But I agree with Johnny M. If it's consistent and learnable, and your kids know it and your coaches know it, you'll be good. Blue, silver, 2, 4, and copper, gold, bronze, 3s. Yeah, I mean, it all works, David. Whatever's good for you, whatever you like doing. And like I said, I studied a ton of TCU stuff, but never one time took their terminology. Just didn't work for me, so I didn't use it. An alarm or a fire alarm, Coach Greenfield, would be a play that you like in a certain setting, maybe at a certain spot on the field. So you might, maybe from the plus 40 in, you notice that they tend to go to man pressures or man defenses or something along those lines. And you've got the ball on your own 30-yard line and you bust out a 25-yard explosive play and it's now first down from their 40. That's a fire alarm where you've got a call in mind. You've got, whether it's a gadget, a trick play, whatever it is, you've got something in your mind for that scenario to go, hey, when we get to this situation, if we get in this situation, if we get an explosive play to put us here, this is the shot play we want to call. If we get a, kind of like an automatic first situation. If we get a sudden change in a certain part of the field. So maybe you've noticed in tendencies that if they turn the ball over deep in your end, all right, maybe that coach or that defensive coach has a tendency to be aggressive. So let's say they're driving to score and they're inside your red zone and they turn the ball over, and you've noticed that after turnovers, their defense loves to blitz, or their defense, loves to be aggressive to try and get the ball back or something along those lines. That might be a fire alarm situation to say, hey, we just picked the ball off at our own 15. We know this blitz is coming. Maybe we draw up a 7-man protection shot because we're getting man coverage, or, we know this pressure's coming. Maybe we throw a screen, maybe we come out in a crazy, like Gus Malzahn will do it all the time. He'll get into certain points and he'll have plays where it's his short huddle plays. And they'll rip off an explosive play, and then all of a sudden they'll get in a short huddle and they'll come out in a crazy unbalanced set and they'll sprint to the ball and not give you a chance to see it. And he might have something exotic drawn up from there where you don't know who's eligible. It might be a tight end lined up on the backside of tackle or something like that. So those are fire alarms. Those are, things that you're thinking about doing after an explosive play, after a sudden change, certain field position things. And those are also things that you've studied on film to understand your opponent. So first year as head coach, and I started this year scripting the first 5, about 5 games, and I felt I just needed to go with the game flow, I think. Yeah. Once the game gets going, I'm a field coach. I coach by momentum and gut feel and ebb and flow of the game, but I don't think there's anything wrong. Some of our, in my 20-year career calling offenses, some of our best drives have always been our first drives with scripted plays based on what we saw on film, and, came out and just attacked coverages and attacked certain players the way we wanted to. And so I'm still a big fan of scripting stuff early on. Yeah, anytime you can change a play and match your terminology, doesn't, take something you learn from somebody, you see it and you do it. And like I said, the dart video I did today, I watched Oklahoma do it. If we ran it, we probably wouldn't call it the same as Oklahoma. It's just our terminology. So can you quantify the tendency percentage? Explain that, Carmine, as far as quantify. Do you mean justify? Explain what you mean by quantify in that sentence, and then tendency. You talking about blitzes? You talking about coverage? Are you talking about stunts? Are you talking about run pass? And are you talking about self-scouting yourself, or are you talking about tendencies of an opponent or somebody else? Jets scored a touchdown. That's not good for the Jaguars. It's crazy when you do look at the NFL and you're thinking about, your hometown team losing so you can get a better draft pick. That's how sad it is where we are right now. But um, having the Jets possibly win a game or two might help us get, if we can get that first pick. I guess we'd take Trevor Lawrence, but not really sure. Um, yeah, I guess yeah. Grew up a Dolphin fan, Marcus. Was born in Miami, then moved to New York. But stayed a Dolphin fan during the Dan Marino era. So, watched us lose the Super Bowl with Don Strock and David Woodley in '82. And then obviously Marino gets there as a rookie in '84 and we lose to the Niners. And then we never get back again. And you got maybe the best passer of all time or the best thrower of the football. Obviously, a lot of guys have won more than him and have had better stats than him. But as far as the mechanics of throwing a football and the release and the arm strength and maybe the best thrower of the football of all time, and you can't win a Super Bowl. So I've struggled, but then I moved down to Jacksonville, and my wife was a Jaguar cheerleader for a little while. So started going to all Jacksonville games. So now I root for the Jags, and it's just kind of sad right now. But yeah, I can imagine the Chargers have struggled. What percentage of the time would a defense have to show you something to alert you? That's a good question, Carmine. Now I get it. So I'd be looking at, let's say it's a sudden change scenario, and I'd probably look at, if I have 3 films and I see 6 sudden change scenarios, and 50% of those, 3 of those 6 are blitzes, then I may gear up something to beat a pressure, coming from that sudden change. If every time the ball gets into the plus 30 or the red zone or something else, you're getting all out 6-man pressure. That might be a fire alarm to a screen or a quarterback run or something, just little things like that. If I would say probably 60% of the time is good enough to quantify that and justify that. Depending on how many games you have on film and how many scenarios you have. Obviously, if you have 2 sudden change scenario and one's a blitz and one's not, don't know if you can quantify that. But if you've got 6 to 8 reps of something on film that maybe when you're backed up, a team's backed up on film, something that they show, if you get 6, 8 reps of that and it's 60%, I think that's good enough to justify and quantify it. So, yeah, it's got to be tough to be a Pats fan right now. Obviously, everybody's, you're second guessing what you've done the last couple of years, but yet it's been pretty successful. So how can you second guess it? And now you're just kind of stuck. You're stuck with a roster that's not good enough, didn't have the money to do the things you wanted to do, went out and paid Cam Newton, but you only paid him a little bit of money because you couldn't afford to pay him anything else. But like Belichick said during that news conference during the week, or press conference during the week, he told whoever it was, he said, well, look at it how you want, but 3 Super Bowls, lost in a 4th one, and an AFC championship, we sold out the last couple of years, and I think it worked. So I got to agree with him. And now you're stuck, and, it's the end of the Brady era, and now you probably got to rebuild and move forward and hope that Belichick can do the wonders he always does in the draft. But, NFL football is made to come to an end. That's what it's supposed to be. That's why it's supposed to be. Hope that helps, Carmine. 60% in my opinion, and probably 6 to 8 reps or more. But the NFL was made to be that way. That's what free agency was for. And, they don't want dynasties because they want different fan bases to be excited about things. So it's been a great run for the Pats, and maybe that run is over. And if so, then maybe you need to struggle for a few years, and the cycle of pro sports and NFL football will feel like it's balanced itself out again if the Pats struggle, just like the Yankees. I've been a Yankee fan my whole life, and Obviously, the Yankees have been very good. They've won a lot, and they've had some times where they don't win for a long period of time, and that's just pro sports, and that's what pro sports are meant to be. Albert, I was going to be a lawyer. My undergrad degree is criminal justice. Thought I was going to go to law school. After doing 5 years, I played golf as a freshman on a full scholarship, and then transferred to play football. So um, I was in college for 5 years after I was done playing football, and um, was going to have to do another 5 or 6 or 4 to 6 for law school, and had a buddy going through it at that time, and didn't feel like I could do, after doing 5, I didn't feel like I could do 5 more. So I had to find a different direction. I just got done playing 4 years of football at a Division III school in New York at St. John's University, and the graduate assistant when I played, we went from Division III to 1AA non-scholarship. Even though the talent level didn't change, some of the rules did. That allowed us to hire a full-time assistant coach. And the kid that was, I say the kid, the young man at that time that was coaching, Eddie Breslin was his name, was a walk-on receiver at Miami. Great guy. He was a younger GA when I was playing, and then he got the full-time coaching job. So that opened up a chance to be a GA, and he contacted me and thought it'd be something I'd be good at. And I started from there, and it's the only job I've ever had in my adult life. I've never been anything other than a teacher or a coach. So I'd say it worked out pretty good, but it was kind of by accident almost, because I didn't want to be that. I wanted to be a lawyer, and then figured didn't have the patience to go to law school. So got into coaching and fell in love with it, and decided that in that area, wasn't a lot of big time college jobs. My coach was a great guy, and I owe everything in the world to my college coach. But he didn't have a lot of connections where, at a young age, I couldn't get on anybody's coattails and ride it out to a big job or big money. So I felt like my best interest would be to get a teaching job and do something that you love. I moved to Florida because football is year round just about. So, teaching and coaching allows me to do something full time as much as I want to do it. It gives me almost a college fix. The only downside of teaching and coaching is it takes up a lot of time and you don't make a lot of money. So now that I have 2 daughters, I'm constantly finding ways to try and make more money now that they're both dancing, and one's in 8th grade, one's in 5th grade, and, cell phones and Disney and, a lot of other things makes it tough as a coach because you don't make a lot of money. So it kind of makes me wish like I might have pursued or tried to pursue some of those bigger jobs and get on somebody's coattails and ride it out. But, everything works out for a reason. I'm where I am for a reason. I do what I do for a reason. And if I would have landed any of those jobs, there wouldn't be PlayFast or YouTube or anything like that. So, all in all, I'm happy with what I've done and what I've chosen. Just like everybody else in the world, I'm just now trying to figure out, with the skill set that I have and the free time that I have, how can I generate more income in a world that's changing. And my salary really as a teacher and a coach isn't changing, but my life is. So, that's the rundown of how I became a coach, and somewhat interesting, somewhat boring, but that's what it is. Average talent up front, how many run schemes would you carry to maximum? My answer has always been 3 to 4. But I've never been a fan of more than 3 to 4. I would love it if it could be 2 to 3 with a lot of wrinkles. So like I talked about in the video today, if you had a dart play that you can run 5 or 6 different ways, and you can run it as a bash theory, and maybe as a toss read theory, and as a quarterback run theory, as a read game theory, and then as a power counter theory, I think that would be excellent. So now you've got a bunch of wrinkles, but you really only have, quote unquote, one run scheme per se. But I've never been a fan of carrying more than 3 or 4 at the level in the high school level, because kids just, all those rules, all those fronts and everything, they don't execute it. So think last year when I called, I didn't call it the offense this year. I have somebody doing it that's doing a good job, and it's been uh, good for me. It's kind of, I think, added some years onto my coaching career and rejuvenated me on the defensive side of the ball a little bit. So, um, but last year we were a gap team, so we ran our version of duo. We ran power and we ran dart and buck sweep, and those were the four things that we carried. And we didn't carry counter. Dart was one of the ways that we used misdirection. If we ran any bash schemes, they were off of dart or power. So, power read or um, bash theories off of jet motion or toss theories with the dart play or the power play. So you know, we never put in anything else to get the perimeter. We used our schemes to get the perimeter and then adjusted from there. So 3 to 4, I think, is the perfect number. If I was, and to be honest with you, Coach Greenfield, if I was really talented, 2 or 3 might be the number. If I was really good, I may only run 2 schemes and with some wrinkles and just say, hey, look, I'm good. You got to stop it. So actually being average would make me want to run 4 schemes. Being good would make me want to run 2 or 3. Learn as much as you can, Johnny. Learn from your mistakes. Don't be afraid to make mistakes. Don't be afraid to learn from other coaches. You'll figure out real quick who the good coaches are and who the bad ones are. Don't judge them by their record. Judge them by their character and how they treat kids and how they do their job. And watch as much film as you can watch. Do your job first and don't worry about anybody else's. Don't worry about promotions. They'll come if you do your job the right way. Just all little things like that, Johnny, is what I would tell you. And um, just stick with it. It's not something you learn overnight. You got to stick with it. You got to be persistent. So hopefully you enjoy it and like doing it and stick with it. We're more 2-foot splits, David. I've never been a 4-foot split team. Occasionally 3-foot on some things, but not a lot. And then depending on what we're trying to run and the type of kids we have will depend on how much of the line of scrimmage we take. Obviously, with the neutral zone and with what you're trying to do, if you're trying to get guys reached or overtaken, obviously you'd like to be off the ball maybe a little bit more. If you're trying to knock people off the ball, obviously you'd like to be tighter. So based on your philosophy of what you want to do with the O-line and what you're trying to get done, would be my deal with how tight I push the bolts of the center's belt loops and stuff like that. But I'm a 2-foot split guy myself. Probably a lot of reasons. Air raid teams haven't won a national championship. Obviously, lack of a running game is probably going to be one reason. Inability to defend hardball runs and build your defense around defending hardball runs is probably going to be another reason. Ball being in the air so many times, not being able to hold leads when you have them. Turnovers with the ball in the air so many times. Obviously, you're more susceptible to turnovers. So things like that, I think in its nature and in its philosophy, I think are why you haven't seen an air raid team win a national championship. But I think you're seeing some teams win national championships that use some air raid principles. To me, that's the way the world is going with offense and defense. I think you've got to be multiple and you've got to use principles of things that have been successful to a lot of different people and put them into and start morphing them into one scheme. I don't know if you can be dead set air raid. I think some of these teams, like the military academies that don't have a choice, I think if they could mix up their flexbone with some other things and try to be more of a spread flexbone team or a tempo flexbone team, I think, building RPOs into the flexbone world or shotgun option football, I think the more people can do that, the more explosive and dynamic you can be. The true systems, like in an all-out air raid system, it's just tough to put the ball in the air that many times. It's tough to not have a consistent running attack to keep. Offenses are so good nowadays. Your defense is going to be on the field a bunch. If you're constantly putting the ball in the air and not taking up a lot of time and not eating up some clock and grinding out some first downs, it's probably going to affect your defense. If you are very good at what you're doing and your short passing game is as good as anybody's run game, then you're going to have a chance. And at the end of the day, I think with any scheme or philosophy or system, I think it comes down to the talent. I think a lot of times the air raid has been something that has been run by teams that feel like they're less talented, and their equalizer is the air raid. Um, I think if you took a true air raid system and a true air raid coach and gave them 4 years with the top one or two recruiting classes for 4 years straight, I think they'd have a chance. Um, you know, I think they'd have a chance to win with that talent. But I think you got to look at some other things like turnovers and time of possession and ground game and being able to win close ones by moving the sticks with running game. So, but it's all hypothetical. I mean, obviously, a true air raid team maybe has not won a national championship. I don't know. I guess you can say that. I don't study it enough to know, but those would be my reasons why. Uh, depending on how true the concepts are and how much adjustments you want, how many reads, how many route conversions you want. To me, the thing about throwing a football in high school is how consistent it is to the amount of time you can get doing it with your receivers and your quarterbacks, and how many guys can be on the same page with how consistent it is. Do you need a lot of route conversions? A lot of teams that are really good throwing a football have a lot of route conversions in there, and there's so much pattern read, pattern match stuff out there that a lot of times you might have to. They're matching your pattern, so you might have to, run your own version of pattern read, which is, a lot of route adjustments, a lot of route flexibility. Route flexibility in high school, it's tough to get kids on the same page with the amount of time that you're able to spend doing it. Arm strength, consistent arm strength. If you want to be at a place that throws the ball, that means you need to consistently have quarterbacks over a 4 to 6 to 8 year period, that you're going to keep grooming and building. So you've got to have quarterbacks to be able to do it. You've got to have offensive line that can, be athletic enough and strong enough to pass set and hold a point and set up a pocket. So there's a lot of things that go into it. I think you could run a run and shoot in high school. I don't think there's anything wrong with it. Don't know how, obviously if you had good players and talent, you'd be successful. You get a good quarterback with a bunch of dudes at receiver and some linemen, yeah, you'll be successful. So I think you can run it. I think you can teach anything in high school. My question would be, what kind of school you're at? Can you be a run and shoot team 8 to 10 years in a row? Can you get those QBs, wideouts, and linemen that many years in a row would be my biggest question. So I'm going to stay on a couple more minutes, guys. It's 9:20, 9:18. Already been on an hour, and obviously with the playoffs going on and work week ahead, we do have an off day Wednesday, but we still got to practice. So salute to any veterans out there that allow me to do what I do and allow us to do what we do. God bless you, and enjoy your day on Wednesday. And I certainly am happy that we have a day off from school because of your sacrifices. So thank you very much. I don't think I think of it more as guys that were coaches that were um, influential to spread stuff. I mean, obviously, I think you've got to look at Rich Rodriguez and what he was able to do at Division II schools before he got his chance at West Virginia, and obviously Urban Meyer and what he was able to do at Bowling Green and how he was able to take a Ohio State wishbone three-back offense and morph it into a spread attack that had option principles. So many guys along the way that have done a great job to be pioneers, along the way to do some things differently. Obviously, Chip Kelly turned it up a notch with, spread stuff, but tempo and then Art Browse and Baylor did a great job. There's been so many of them. Lane Kiffin's been phenomenal. Um, Lincoln Riley's obviously a genius. There's just so many great coaches out there. But when I think, thanks, Coach Greenfield. Um, when I think spread and you say 2000s, right away I go to Rich Rodriguez and Urban Meyer, and you know I'm sure there's a bunch of great ones that I'm missing, but from everything I studied, I started with Rich Rod, and then it went to Urban, did some things, and took it from there. So those are the two names that I remember the most. There's a reason for that, real. I think I think a lot of people sometimes overlook who the players were and um, what the capacity. When you have a coach that likes to do a lot of different things, and all of a sudden he doesn't, there's a reason for that, and it's probably the capacity or the ability for players to understand certain things. And he did a great job at Florida with the Percy Harvins and the Tim Tebows, and you know the guys that he had, putting them in really good positions. And then if some of those things expanded in Ohio State and he was able to do more, then so be it. But he's a true um, three-back wishbone guy at heart. That's what he grew up on, and that's where he cut his teeth. And he just found a way to do it in the spread. So hats off to him for what he was able to do. I've always been personally offensively. I've always been a Noel Mazzone guy. I've always studied everything Noel Mazzone has done, and a lot of my terminology with my three-man snag stuff. And again, I don't use his terminology verbatim, but I do a lot of things that push motion, tear motion, things that I got from key screens as part of triple option, things that I got from learning and studying Noel Mazzone. So my hat's always off to Noel Mazzone. It looks pretty good for us right now, Carmine. We drew our playoff system in Florida was a blind draw, so I think we drew somebody that is comparable to us, and we drew a home game, so we don't have to travel. So, I think our first two rounds, if we can play well Friday, I think it's a good matchup for us. And then the second round game is either going to be a team that we can match up with or a team that just beat us 35-32 that obviously we know we match up with. So I think the first two rounds look really good, and we're excited, and both of those will be home games. So, it's good. It's crazy. Like I said, we probably don't deserve at 3-5 to be in it. A lot of teams don't, but it was a blind draw. It was done at random, and we found out when everybody else found out, and it just so happens that we got a good draw in a home game, so we're fortunate. I've had a lot of bad breaks in my coaching career. Got into some districts. I was in the district with Tim Tebow for 3 years, and at the same time, we were in that same district, had the all-time winningest program in the state of Florida, Lake City, Columbia, at the time. So, I've drawn some tough districts. I was in a district with Rains High School, and back in the day with Rains, Ribault, and Jackson, when Leon Washington was at Jackson, and Kevin Sullivan had it rolling at Jackson, and Welton Coffey was at Rains. And so I've had my share of bad luck in high school football with some things, and now I feel like this year was a little bit of blessing. We got a good draw. We got a good draw with our bracket. We got a good draw with our opponent, and we got a good draw with two home games if we win them. So I'm happy about that. Postseason, do you find yourself using offensive plays and formation from years past to throw other teams? Jason, not postseason as much, but leading up to postseason, that's something that I would always do. I would always do some things that I've done differently or in the past, or things that I'm always a big fan of putting things on tape and making teams prepare for them. So the last game that we played was against an opponent that will possibly be our second round opponent in the playoffs. And our opponent for the first round had already been drawn. Their opponent for the first round had already been drawn. The game that we played against them, we were on a 3-game winning streak, and it was for us to go 4-4 and end the season 500 and end with 4 straight wins. So there was a lot on the line, but at the same time, the game was meaningless as far as what was going to happen in the postseason. And we had a chance to draw this team a second time. So I definitely put some things on film that I wouldn't have called or ran during that game at certain times, just so if we do play them again, they have to prepare for that, honor it. So I've always done that leading into the playoffs. Now, I wouldn't say I pulled some things from years past in playoff games all the time, but leading up to it, I have certainly dipped in and out of some things and um, pulled some things out to put on film to make people defend, especially on, a bunch on special teams. So all out blocks on punt, punt fakes, different exotic formations in punt, onside kicks, muddle huddle stuff on extra points. So I'm a big fan of throwing that all out there on tape before the playoffs and letting teams see it. Tear motion is fast running back motion. So, you start with two backs and you push one of them out fast, or you're in 2x2 and 3x1 and you push one of them out fast, making it 4 strong. Or basically, it's a way of getting leverage to the perimeter with your back in the passing game, while also seeing the rotation of the defense to figure out how they handle that motion and where you can, manipulate the rotations of how they handle that motion. So that's the easiest way I can explain it. Manipulate or split ends is tight ends, and tight ends is split ends. Darrell Royal, Texas Leaders. As far as which part in New England, when you talk about Edelman and Amendola, Vereen, and White. Darrell Royal was a great football coach. Yeah, they had a pretty good quarterback to look back at. I think that had a lot to do with them catching a lot of passes. But they were great guys in a great system. Yeah, that's a good point, David. I like that. I like that point about the Patriots and the Darrell Royal stuff. Yeah, those are all good points. I didn't necessarily look at it that way, but now that you explained it that way, it's logical. It's smart. Guys, really smart guys like that can make adjustments, and the Josh McDaniels of the world, and the Sean McVays and the guys like that, and the really good ones can be innovative. Yeah, they. I feel like Welker back in the day would have been somebody's triple option quarterback, and Gronk definitely would have been somebody's fullback. But a lot of those really smart guys in the NFL can, they're just so good with seeing things a different way that other people have never looked at it before. And, just like Leach and Mummy were really good at seeing things a different way, and Bill Walsh and Lavelle Edwards and guys like that were so good at seeing things a different way. And so, the good ones just in any sport, in any venture, in any business, the good ones just have a way analytically of seeing things different than everybody else. What if empty slide protection? Which part? I would be half slide protection personally. If I was an empty, I'd be a man side and half zone slide side with the center of the first uncovered. And I'd make sure we had a ton of work on our hot throws, because that thing's coming out, because most people are going to pressure you. I was never a tight end guy. We were more of a 20 personnel guy, but I think tight end stuff is used to either add a gap or add a body in. But you add a body, they're going to add a body, so you're going to get heavier boxes. Tight end stuff is also to create matchups in the passing game, or mismatches in the passing game, trying to get linebackers on guys that are better receivers than them, and trying to get better angles on some things, and different double teams, and different angles in the fronts. But I think adding a tight end adds a bunch of different fronts and a bunch of different combinations, so you got to coach it a lot more. We're a shield punt team as a base, and then we are a rugby punt with two punters. We actually line up with two punters, um, a right-footed punter and a left-footed punter that can both catch the snap, and then we will rugby punt right or rugby punt left based on the look that the defense gives us or where we are on the field. So we're a base shield team, and then we are a two-man shield deal, rugby punt, but the two-man shield usually leads the side of the rugby punt. So we do it both ways. I wouldn't, and I won't until we just can't do it anymore. I won't change the shield. It's too it's too cost effective to coach. You don't have to spend as much time as you do with the pro punt. You can get really good and really effective at it without spending a lot of time on it. I'm not saying we neglect it. That's not what I'm saying at all. We have pretty extensive in our punt game with our shield punt and our rugby right and rugby left and some of the fakes that we use out of it. So we do a good job with it. I'm not going to say I do a great job, but I think we do a good job with it and we spend enough time with it to be successful. But with that being said, that's the reason we do it is it doesn't take as long as the pro punt. The pro punt stuff is, like the spread pro punt stuff. That just takes a long time. The technique is tough. You usually end up with a man side or a zone side, and you got to get all the calls right and the looks right. And I wouldn't change the shield punt for us unless we just, for whatever reason, got to a point where everybody figured it out, or snapper couldn't get it there, or the shield had a problem. I wouldn't. We've been doing it for 6 or 8 years now, and absolutely love it. So, yeah, just look at it this way. Coach say usually you're going to have a man side, and the first uncovered man on that side is going to start a turn. So if you're playing an even front team and there's a 3 and a 5 on the front side, then the center is going to start to turn, and the center, the backside guard, and the tackle will have the 1, the 5, and whatever shows up there. If the 1's on the front side, then the guard will start a 4-man slide, and the guard, the center, the guard, and the tackle will now have the 1, the 3, the 5, and the backside backer. If it's an odd front, that guard will start the slide, and now your frontside guard, your center, your backside guard, and tackle will have the nose, the will, the end, and the rush backer or whatever. So it's not that hard once you go through all the fronts. You take the man side and figure out who's covering, and then you go from the first uncovered and you start a zone side. So it's not crazy trying to block all the different pressures that you see in college and the NFL and then come up with different protection calls and ways to do it is what makes it so difficult at that level. But in its truest form, it's very simple. If you, like, for us, our calls were red and black. We use red and black. Red meant the right side was man and the center turned left. And then the only thing you needed to figure out was the right guard covered, because if he's covered, he's a man player, and the center is going to make a 3-man zone side. If the right guard is uncovered, he's going to slide, and now we're going to have a 4-man side. So, that to me was always the easiest rules, the easiest way to teach it. First uncovered from the man side starts to turn back, and then you have a man side and a zone side, and then you're obviously I would have my hots built into the front side. So the man side to me would be mostly where I had my sight adjustments or my hots in so that the quarterback could see it and throw it, because you're going to get pressure and empty eventually. They're either going to try and cover it or they're going to try and kill it. So I would have my hots built in front side. So to the man side, that's where the quarterback would be looking, and any backer that we couldn't get to would be hot, and we would have our routes built in to throw hot off that. So, the execution of it is harder. And then picking up all the different looks and stunts that they can throw at you is harder than the rules of it itself. And half slide protection are pretty damn simple. The technique involved, the strength involved, the footwork involved, and the athletic ability involved. That's the hard part. So it's not, half slide protection is not hard to figure out. But I appreciate all you guys being on tonight. And appreciate you guys watching all the videos, subscribing to the channel. I know tonight was Monday Night Football and Monday Night Raw Wrestling, and we still had over 20-something people here. So the good thing is it's getting down to the end of the season. So the season's going to end soon to where we can do this a little bit more often. The other site that I run, the Patreon site, is starting to have more videos with me voicing over us with game clips, showing you how we do certain things with run fits and offensively with our gap schemes. And so that's going to continue to pick up. I'm back in the mode of doing podcasts now, trying to do one every Wednesday or every other Wednesday. So, the good thing for us is we got the season in. Yeah, that Teespring's in there. Go ahead and get a hoodie or get whatever you. I believe it's Teespring that runs through the YouTube channel, but I know I have a store with some stuff in it, some hoodies and some leggings and some shirts and stuff. So anybody that wants to hit it up, hit it up. Thank you, Carmine. So, like I said, the good thing is the next game we lose will be our last. And the off season for me is always such a great time because I want to learn. I want to study football with other coaches, but from the PlayFast side of it, the off season is when we get a lot of our work done because that's when I have the free time to do more YouTube live and to do more YouTube videos and to do more podcasts and to interview other coaches and find out, what guys are doing and hopefully sometime in the future set up the next PlayFast clinic. So as sad as it'll be to lose a football game, and it'll hurt more for my kids and my other coaches than it will for myself. But that next football game we lose just means PlayFast football picks up even more. So glad all you guys could be out here tonight. Thanks for the comments. Thanks for the questions. Thanks for being on. Remember to turn the notifications on so you know when I'm doing stuff on YouTube. Thank you, David. Remember to comment any of the videos that we do so that I know what you think about them. And actually, sometimes you guys bring up points that help me out more than they help you out. So anything that comes across that I won't, that doesn't get spammed or blocked, if I see it, I'll respond to it. So subscribe to the channel, turn the notifications on so you know when we do videos. Every time we do live like this, join in, ask whatever questions you want, comment whatever you want. And hopefully you're all playing football again. Hopefully we're all safe. Hopefully we're all through the yeah. What about, are we a Mike Norvell guy, Chris? I know some Florida State people are a little bit nervy about Mike Norvell. I love the guy. I think he's going to be good. I think he's going to be good. I just don't think people realize how big of a train wreck Florida State was, and it's going to take time to get back to where they were. But I think personally Norvell is the right guy. So hopefully they get it rolling again. But again, hopefully you guys are all coaching somewhere. And if you're not coaching right now, hopefully you're coaching again in the future, whether it's spring ball or winter ball or next season. And we'll enjoy the off season together. If we can get the clinic rolling, we'll get it rolling. If we can figure out more and better ways to do some things virtually, online interaction, YouTube live, we'll figure that out. So any ideas you got, send them my way. I'm all good for it. Good luck to everybody playing this week. Good luck to everybody playing maybe sometime in the future. And stay safe out there. Hopefully all the political stuff is kind of beside us or behind us with, riots and rallies and other nonsense. And hopefully we all kind of figure out that whoever's in charge, we all got to keep living our lives and helping one another and respecting one another. And, hopefully if the big chair in charge is something that provokes different thoughts for people and it's positive, then let it be positive. We've had enough negative out there. So hopefully we're through all that and hopefully we can get back to doing the things we love. And hopefully this pandemic takes care of itself soon and we can get back to normal. All right, guys, but I appreciate you. Thanks for being on. Thanks for listening. Thanks for following everything we do. Go Noles, Chris. It doesn't hurt me to say that. I'm an Alabama guy. And remember, you won't play well until you play fast, and I'll catch you guys next time.